Hey guys, so in this video, I just want to compare two multi-effects guitar multi-effects processors from the same company. Okay, so this is Ampero 2 Stomp, and this is Ampero Mini. Both of those are made by a company called Hotone, and Hotone is a Chinese company making multi-effects processors. Prior to this, I've owned a few other multi-effects processors, the NUX MG30, the Boss, I think MG100, and so those two are the ones that I own, and also a Boss pocketable multi-effects processor. And what's not shown here is my tube amp, which is a Line 6 DT50 combo, and I rarely use that tube amp anymore, only because the multi-effects processors for me as a beginner is just so much easier to use, and I also have the option of hooking up a headphone into those for nighttime playing and practice. Now keep in mind, this review is purely from a beginner guitar learner perspective. I have very limited knowledge on music theory and also playing guitars, but I do like electronic gears, so that's why I try all different kinds, and in turn I am hopefully be able to give you some first-hand experience and also my own opinion as a beginner on which of those two multi-effects processors you should have. And as I mentioned, I had three different multi-effects processors before those two, and now my choice for my personal use is the Ampero 2 Stomp after I tried the Ampero Mini. Okay, in theory, those two devices are actually offering pretty much the same functionality and the almost very similar sound when it comes to guitar effects. Both of those accept patches. The Ampero 2 accepts, I think, up to 300 different patch/effects, and the Ampero Mini accepts, I think, up to 100, which is, again, plenty. I literally, when I practice, I only use like 3 max different kinds of effects or the sound that I use. So having the ability to have like 300 to 100 is like way overkill for a beginner, at least. And this one, in theory, has a Gen 2 amp modeler. And also this one, the process chain for each of those effects is slightly longer. So let me see. So this one, if I can edit. So if you see right here, this has a longer chain, effects chain, compared to this one, and this one has a fixed effects chain, so you can't really switch the orders, and you cannot split the effects, the output effects. Over here, this one is a lot more powerful. You're able to run 2 channels. You're able to run 1 channel and split it, have some sort of like effects coming down and then coming up before it all output to some other different effects. And you also have the ability to just have 1 long chain of the effects from in to out, and those effects are also switchable in terms of where you want to put them. Over here, all the stuff are kind of fixed. So if you're on the amp option, you're pretty much set on the amp option. I mean, you have plenty of different amp choices in here. You can see like, how many amps? 54 different kinds of amps, which is crazy, okay? Even for Ampero Mini. You have a noise gate, noise reduction, you have a cab effects. On the cab, you have how many effects? So many different kinds of speakers. And you can do custom cab patches. So over here, like just on board, you got 60 different cab options. And of course, a whole bunch of different kinds of effects, a wah, what's this? This is boost. Those different pedal options are pretty much in the effects. Yep. And you have a custom EQ over here. You also have the reverb option, delay option. And in here, you have different kinds of delays, different pedal options. Reverb, you have different kinds of reverbs depending on the situation and the sound. So yeah, I mean, for a beginner, again, I don't really change those options because I literally just set 1 effect and do very slight adjustments on those effects and then hit go, right? But over here, if you are very serious and you are advancing, right? So you probably want to go for the Ampero 2 just because the ability to move those effects, to drag, drop those effects, and also have more modeling options. And it's a full touch screen, by the way. So let's see what kind of amp we have. So 30 different kind of drive amps. And this one is nice because everything's categorized. You have clean sound amps, you have drive amps, you have high gain amps, you have bass amps, and also power amps. So I would say there are more, actually slightly more amp options over here on the Ampero 2 compared to the Ampero Mini. You have, what's this? DRV, what is DRV? Those are the different kinds of drives. You have overdrive, you have fuzz, so maybe pedal options, I would think. So many different kinds, so many choices, and so many settings that you can customize. Again, as a beginner, I'm already overwhelmed, but those options are here if you are determined, and if you're already, you know, intermediate or advanced, then this is the Ampero 2 is definitely a lot quicker to operate and a lot more options. Second advantage to the Ampero 2 is the additional buttons makes changing those settings much, much quicker than here using the touch screen. Okay, sometimes the buttons are still just quicker and more precise. Okay, I mean, you can do the same thing here using the touch, but again, if given the option of the physical buttons, I think most people would actually reach for physical buttons. Similar things for cars, like people just hate touch screens and they love physical buttons. And over here, the Ampero 2 gives you all the options there is with the button, okay? And this button, okay, it's multifunctional as well, so it's click and turnable. So with this single button, you can also have the option to just quickly click on things you want to change if you don't want to use your finger, and hit and press down and change them, okay? So if I'm here, I can change to different effects, and if I'm here, I can change to the stomp mode or the patch mode, and you know, it's just more convenient, way more convenient than here. Is it beneficial for beginners? Not as much. Again, for me, I literally just hit one effect and I hit go, right? Okay, so great things for beginners are like drum options, right? Immediately, you have some really high quality drums that's built in here. This is a Mini, by the way. And also you have different drums for different genres of music. Let's turn the volume down a little bit. So you can adjust everything very quickly. As you can see, like I can adjust the volume by just pressing it. So you don't need a physical button, but it's nice to have a dedicated volume button, as you can see here. Of course, right? So you have the option to sync with the BPM. Depending on what BPM you set, the drum is gonna play with a different tempo, okay? This is just so nice. Like, I was literally blown away by the function of the Ampero Mini for like literally $200. This provides every function that I liked on the NUX MG30 as well as the Boss, I think GX100. Everything in here for $200, and it's so much more compact. Like literally, just great for beginners. So that's the drum option. You also have a looper option here that I never use, but I know it's there. I think you long press, you go into the looper option. Records 50 minutes of stereo, and I think, you know, 150 minutes of mono looping option here. And again, with a whole bunch of cool settings that if you know how to use them, and I'm sure it's very helpful, right? All those, you know, stomp modes are, you know, fully customizable. You go into different stomps, you might see that all the options here are the same, but all the settings are actually different because, again, the stomp mode is preset options of different patches, right? Again, a lot of useful patches on the Ampero Mini, so I'm already blown away by the options. But the moment I switched to Ampero 2, which by the way I just got last week, and I already started playing with this. Again, if you used Ampero Mini and you get to Ampero 2, it feels at home, and it also feels a lot faster to use. Just because, again, let's see, let's just choose. Just because all the settings and the way to customize settings are exactly the same. So, and over here, again, this new interface I don't like. I really like this old interface, which is nice, easy to spot, and is visually more efficient compared to this new interface. Looks cool, but it's not as efficient. So yeah, all those effects, again, Stomp modes pre-patched. The only difference is I can just adjust them quickly, and I also have option to switch between the 3 sub Stomp modes within one main Stomp mode. And over here, again, it's just one press to switch between 1, 2, 3. And over here, you have option to quickly switch if you're on the stage. It's quite nice. So yeah, you would feel totally right at home if you just upgrade from the Mini to the 2. What's also cool about the 2 is the amount of inputs literally doubles. And now you have a dedicated stereo FX effect loop, send and return. You also get additional stereo input, balanced stereo output, of course, mono options if you only use mono, expression pedal that both of those have, and also a dedicated power switch. Okay, so you can literally turn this off and it saves power. On the Ampero Mini, it doesn't have the power button, so the only way to turn it off is unplug it. You do have a dedicated volume button, but it's very inconvenient. It's like right here. You have to get your hands over here to adjust. Not convenient. Over here, super convenient. Right here. Okay. For the Mini, you have the basics. You have a mono input, a mono output. Actually, it's a stereo output, but it's combined. So it's mono or stereo, depending on what kind of jack, what kind of the cable that you're using. You are able to use to do a stereo output, which is nice. But again, your input is set to mono. You can't really make this a stereo, input, right? So that there is some sort of limitations, even if you have stereo output on the Ampero Mini. The USB output is functionality is about the same. I believe this one has a slightly higher spec in terms of the audio output on the PC or the Mac. You do have some more channels, I believe, or effects channels on there compared to the Ampero Mini with the 2 Stomp. The 2 Stomp is slightly better in terms of using it for the PC or the Mac for recordings. This button just goes up and down, so exactly the same as this. Over here, if you have to go up and down, okay, sorry, I turned it off. You have to do this. Again, in a way, I guess it's not that convenient compared to here, which is quicker. You gain some, you lose some. And over here, if you press in this way, if you double press those 2 sides, you go into the looping mode. Long press, you go to the loop, and short press, you go to the tuner. The tuner on the Mini is actually more accurate than the Ampero 2, which when I try to tune my bass, it actually jumps around. But on Ampero Mini, when I'm tuning my bass, it's like very stable in terms of the detecting the note and the signal. So there you have it. Oh, this one also has dedicated MIDI in and out. So for professionals, I think you definitely want to get the Ampero 2 Stomp for those additional features that I believe professionals and musicians use more often than this, which has very limited outputs and inputs. But again, a beginner's review on the features over here. Now, in terms of doing all those advanced settings, I would say just the general impression that Ampero Mini has about 80% of what the Ampero 2 Stomp has. And in terms of hardware specifications, this is about 90% of the Ampero 2, okay? And this one is also bigger and heavier. It's twice as heavy. But again, me as a beginner, if your budget is limited, Ampero Mini is gonna give you pretty much things that you need. If budget is not an issue and you're a beginner and you think you're serious about, doing musician things, get the Ampero 2 and skip the Mini. The Mini is great if you want to travel around and practice with your bass or guitars. This one, it's just twice as big and heavy, slightly less easy to travel with if you want to have a dedicated practicing amp and you don't need all the additional features for live performance. So that's my beginner's first impression or review of those two multi-effects processors. Software-wise, on the computer, it's about the same. You literally load the patches. You can change all the settings there is with just click of a couple buttons using your mouse. So very easy to use in terms of like using it on the computer. There's no difference because everything is clicked. But in terms of using it physically, the two definitely wins in terms of convenience, additional feature set, slightly better audio quality, and slightly more features. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you did, please do hit the like button or subscribe to my channel. And the only thing I want to criticize for Hotone is firmware update process. For those two, it's very confusing. You need to install different software. You need to download different firmwares to use with those software on the PC or the Mac in order to upload the multi-effects processor. But if you just follow their instruction carefully, you should be able to update them to the newest firmware, which again adds a lot more features, a lot more amp effects, and is more stable. All right, I do have a video on how to update the firmware on the Ampero Mini, and I'm thinking about doing one on how to do it on the Ampero 2, but the processes are actually very similar. You just have to very carefully read their firmware update instructions and download the correct Ampero software on your PC or Mac in order to update. Okay, so that's it. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.